Pluto stationing direct. So this is happening in the evening Eastern time at 10:54 p.m. Now, for additional context on this Pluto retrograde, I mentioned a little bit earlier in this discussion. If you want the full deep dive on Pluto in retrograde, I have a video from May 4th where I do the full breakdown, how to interpret this in your chart. And we're already here. We have reached the point of stationing direct. Now, to give a little context, when we're thinking about an outer planet, especially Pluto, the outermost planet, it retrogrades every year. And it retrogrades like every 5 to 6 months. So we're half on, half off, half on, half off, over and over and over again. If you've heard me talk about retrogrades for any planet, there's a pre-shadow. So it's the buildup. It's the planet starting to move a little bit slower, then it stations retrograde. It pauses. Then it starts moving retrograde. We have that period of time. And then it stations direct, which is what's happening here. And that means it's pausing. And then it's preparing to move forward. But it's retracing the degree points that it originally slowed down in many, many months ago. So May 4th is when it stationed retrograde, which means the degree points that we're going to be retracing in October, November, beyond, it's going to be retracing degrees that we were living out at the beginning of 2025. So before May 4th. So whenever we have this Pluto retrograde, this off, the on, the off, the on, we're looking at the better part of an entire year because it's either off or it's on. And in either way, it's doubling back on degree points that it already was covering. Because Pluto moves so slow, it's not really moving very many degrees. It first entered Aquarius in November of 2024. So we're approaching the year mark. Exciting. Year 1 down of 20. We're almost 1/20th of the way through this transit. And that means that we're not really covering that many degrees in this 1 year that we've lived and in this retrograde of what's being retraced. So we want to normally what we do, and I have this in my calendar because I haven't done this historically in my classes. I'm just like, oh, it's 1 degree, it's 0 degrees, but there's minutes. So especially if you use AstroSeek, you'll see this, but there's the degree. I'll just give an example here. I'll throw a random one in the chat. So it's like 0 degrees and 14 minutes. So it'll look like that. And the minutes is a subdivision. And when you have an outer planet, which moves so slowly, that is kind of even more of the metric of what we need to look at, because it's like, oh, it's stationed retrograde at 0 degrees. It's stationed direct at 0 degrees. And it's like, okay, so it just looks like it's sitting there. But if we want to really get nuanced, those whatever could matter with aspecting one of our planets. So just additional context to keep in mind when you're trying to understand these retrogrades, because they're so big, they happen so often that, yes, for the most part, we are contextualizing them in the collective. What does Pluto in Aquarius mean for the collective? And then also, hey, what does it mean for you? Where are you transforming? Before the collective is where we see it most visibly. And if we want to really get down to the nitty-gritty, we may want to lean into looking at those minutes to super subdivide. Pluto represents power dynamics, transformation, rebirth. Aquarius is rebellious, intellectual, humanitarian, people-focused, and system-focused. It is the egalitarian to Capricorn's oligarch. So we have a hierarchy that exists for Capricorn. So both of them are ruled by Saturn, but Saturn, when it applies its structure within Capricorn, it's about building a route, a ladder, so someone can get to the top and someone contains and controls the power at the top. When Saturn is applying its energies to Aquarius, it's spreading it out. It's horizontal, not vertical. So the power, the authority is with the people. So that is the energy that we're in now. And again, I have some blog posts, I have videos talking about Pluto in Aquarius versus Pluto in Capricorn. So if you'd like to learn more about that, again, resources on my website. Essentially, when we get to a planet like Pluto stationing direct, what we're being asked to do is just reflect on it. So for a retrograde, it is a period of reflection, revision, redoing. Because Pluto moves so slowly, it's not like fast action and adjustment. It's just like, hey, we were trying to make some changes. We're trying to transform as a collective. We're trying to shift our structures. And then when the retrograde kicks on, it's like, either they're all getting rolled back and we feel that progress is being rewound. We are not having progress. The progress we made is being delete, delete, delete. That's something that we could register. Do we feel that that's what we've been experiencing from May until now? And also, it's revealing and having us review subconscious patterns and tendencies that we have, because it is the underbelly. Pluto is like what's underneath the surface. So that's where we can kind of take it on the personal level. Like what are things in our subconscious? What are things that we very deeply learned about ourselves that we can then use as we go into forward motion again to keep up that work, to keep healing and rebirthifying this area of our chart, because that's Pluto's mission over the 20 years that it is in Aquarius. It is to have us reborn on the other side. So when we have the retrogrades, it's like, hey, what did we learn? What did we change? How's that going? Are we reverting? Are we sliding back? And then it moves forward again, and we can make some new ground slowly with intention. So I did. Okay. I wrote down the minutes here. So what we want to look at, and I will put these in the chat for this retrograde, is we are looking at the houses, and we want to be very specific here. We're looking at the houses. So this is for the Pluto Rx in 2025. We are looking at 3 degrees, 49 minutes, back through 1 degree, 22 minutes. So that is the very, very specific slice. So if we're keeping it broad, we say, between 3 and 1 degree. But you could have an aspect that it kind of matters. Like, are you really exactly hitting it? How intensely is it in the orb or out of the orb? Because we really want to be that granular when we're talking about the outer planets, because, okay, it took 5 months and it moved less than 2 degrees. Hardly anything. Normally for a retrograde, it's like moving back like, 10, 15, like it's some like significant amount. So it's moving so slowly, like we really want to zero in and focus on that. So remember that once it's in direct motion, it doesn't mean that something is going to flip overnight and it's like, whoa, I'm transformed. That's not what's happening. It's slow and steady with very deep-seated reverberations. So we're just kind of feeling a rumble. We're feeling a rumble anytime it's in direct motion over the 20 years. Jupiter and Mercury are both going to be stationing retrograde in the first half of October. So this Pluto stationing direct is like giving us a relief of like, oh, yay, one less planet. And then it's going to be replaced by 2. So this whole basically mid 2025 through the end of the year and actually going into January and February, we have just a series of retrogrades starting and stopping and starting and stopping and starting and stopping. And then they're ingressing and they're going into their new signs. So there's a lot of activity that's been happening. And Pluto was one of, if not the first planet in this series to be retrograde. And that's to not forget, we started off with Mars in retrograde. We had a Mercury retrograde. We've had so many retrogrades this year, which don't always happen at the same time. And then we had our kind of normal, regularly scheduled, a bunch of outer planets retrograding around the same time, off and on, off and on. She has a split. So she has the third house is at that first degree. The fourth house is starting at the third degree. So she's an example where she has a house line in the Placidus system that's falling between that range that Pluto has been transiting over. For the majority of the time that Pluto is transiting Aquarius, Misty's going to be focusing more on the fourth house because that handoff happens right at the beginning. And depending on her chart, she could have a little bit of the fifth house there, or it's just fourth house for the rest of the way. What did I learn about myself for my unconscious patterns when it comes to how I communicate, how I am interacting with my local surroundings, my neighborhood, my community? And also, what came up with my family, interacting with my family, healing any childhood trauma, or stories of your family origin, your family tree going back generations. Did anything come to light during these last 5 months? And we can just take a beat and say, all right, do we want to do anything with that information? Where do we want to file that for our next, what will be 19 years starting in November? Next 19. How do we want to take that information? How do we want to integrate that, harness it, so we can use it for this slow build that we have? 10th house, you're going to be reflecting on over the last 5 months. What are patterns that have been revealed to you? What have you come to understand about yourself in relationship with your career, in relationship with your work, in relationship with visibility? How comfortable are you to be seen by others? Have you battled at all with your reputation versus like who you really are, but they think this of me, but that's not me? Have you had conversations like that with yourself or with other people? Any fears around that have come to the surface? Anything that you've recognized about, like, well, I keep doing this, I keep saying this, I keep avoiding this? Those are the things that Pluto retrograde is trying to highlight for us. And then when you're folding in Aquarius, it's like, okay, it's about your connection with the people. So whatever it is that your job happens to be, maybe you're working with people, like a lot of people or not, or you're providing services or not, or there's innovation or not, that could be folded in, and it could just be emblematic of what your career is, but it also could be those considerations as well. How are you also innovating? Are you innovating enough? Are you pushing yourself to grow enough, to be new, to be rebellious? Those are other reflection questions. 8th house direct trine to my moon in Libra. Reminder, trines are always in like elements. So Aquarius is an air sign. Libra is an air sign. That means it's a trine. 8th house, perfect for Pluto. Also, are you a Cancer rising? It could depend on your chart, but are you Cancer rising? Pluto is about transformation. The 8th house also has signatures of transformation. So it's doubled down. So everyone else is thinking about what patterns were revealed. How can I use them to aid in my transformation and my long-term steady growth and rebirth? For you, it's even more obvious. And it's pulling in your emotions. So it's how you are processing things, making things fair and balanced, Libra. So we're saying, based on what's transpired, do I think this is fair? How can I shake loose my maybe even attachment to whether it's fair or not? Is that getting in the way? Is that hindering me from being able to do the new innovative thing, to push my boundaries because I just want people to get along rather than pushing for change? amongst the people, who I'm connecting with. That Libra moon might be keeping you like a little held back, and that could be part of that call to action for pushing you to step outside of your comfort zone. Again, we're trying to make big transformations, not overnight, but over 20 years. And with this particular activation, again, it likely won't happen again, but maybe it might, depending on the exact degree point. Maybe it happens, maybe it gets activated again next year if it's in the orb, but eventually it's going to be out of range, and we're only sitting in this energy right now. But as Pluto keeps moving through Aquarius, unless you have other placements in Libra, or other placements in other signs where it's aspecting it, it's only going to activate this particular energy right now, and then maybe it'll activate it next year too. Yes, okay, cool. Hi, I'm also Cancer rising. I was looking, so I was like, 8th house Aquarius, that's what I have. Yeah, so those are things that you could reflect on once Pluto goes direct.